So let's start with that. How do you define evolution, right? And how is it relevant to our daily lives?
Yeah. So that's a beautiful question and a wonderful place to start. It's also a big question because evolution is, when I speak about evolution on the show, I'm speaking about evolution in the most general sense. I am speaking about Darwinian or not Darwinian evolution, depending on where you, what your mindset is there, or your belief systems. I'm also talking about cosmological evolution. I'm talking about the evolution of systems, everything, right? Because we live in an evolutionary system. And so what happened was I was living my life. And by the way, I started reading like Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer back in the early 90s and like kind of got into that manifestation culture that is pretty well entrenched now. It's quite
Mm.
a big industry. It's quite a big mindset and movement. Um, but a couple of things were happening to me that kind of came to a head about 5 years ago. And the first thing was that there was some inconsistency in my manifestation practice. I was doing the same thing for one thing and it would come easily and quickly, and I would be doing the same thing for something else and it's just not showing up. And I think that everyone that that tries this modality has that experience, right? I think it's very common. And I couldn't like grasp why that was happening. And at the same time, I was having this massive cognitive dissonance that I know everyone is going to relate to, and that is I'm working on my life. And by the way, it was good. My life has been pretty stellar since about 42 years old, and I'm in my 50s now. And, and I'm stellar, but there's something missing. And one of the things that was really bothering me was that what is the context for my life?
Mm.
The context for my life is the greater environment. It's the world. And in my opinion, at the time, the world was like a fire in a madhouse. I mean, you turn on the news for 5 seconds, it's a recipe for mental health issues.
Mm.
And so I'm supposed to create my perfect life in this context that is so imperfect. And well, that kind of didn't make sense. It felt like making tea while the house is on fire. So thought, so what can I do? Shouldn't I be doing something?
Mm.
And what is that thing that I should be doing? And so there came a moment where I realized that there was kind of one thing that pulled that all together. And I was kind of taken with this idea that has gained some popularity in science now, and that is that we live in a holographic fractal universe. Holographic meaning that the information of the whole system is available at every point in the system, meaning
Mm. Mhm.
another way to say that would be like the information in the universal mind, the knowing of the universal mind is available everywhere,
Yes.
including to you and me. And
Interconnectedness.
absolutely. And the other piece, the fractal piece says that the information or the equation or the pattern that makes the whole system also makes everything in the system.
Mm.
So in other words, our nature is its nature. And the one thing that I noticed that all of the scientific disciplines seemed to agree upon is that we live in a whole, or that we live in an evolutionary system, that the universe
Mm.
is evolutionary. Ask any scientific discipline, and they will say, yeah, everything seems to be evolving. And so it occurred to me that if that's its nature and it's our nature, then, and by the way, there's intelligence in the system, there's intention in the system, there's consciousness in the
Mhm.
system, right? I don't think that probably most of your listeners will not be subscribing to the idea that consciousness is an epiphenomenon of biological life,
Right. And that
that
it's
there's
all random or something, right?
right, and that there's right that everything happened on accident. That's statistically that's a joke. I mean, there's so many people, very smart people, statisticians, mathematicians, other scientists are blowing holes in that theory constantly because it's almost a flat out impossibility that this is a mistake, right? And so there's consciousness and intention, and Schrodinger, one of the fathers of quantum physics, said something along the lines of there's only one consciousness in the universe. To refer to consciousness in the plural
Mm.
is erroneous. And which means that we are having this experience of being separate, but we're not. Our consciousness is embedded in the consciousness of the universe and probably lots of layers in between. Doesn't matter. I don't know. Right. But just to understand that there's that intentionality in the universe. And so if we live in an evolutionary system, then the mind in which we are embedded will be driving us to evolve.
Mm.
And I woke up and I went, okay, I'm focused in on my manifestation practice. And my manifestation practice is about circumstances. It's about bringing things into my life and circumstances and relationships and, outward trappings, right? And the universal mind in which I am embedded is focused on my becoming.
Mm.
It's focused on my evolution. And so we're playing two different games. And as soon as I realized that, I went, oh my God. So if I shift my focus over to the same thing, that the organizing intelligent principle in which I am embedded, that in which I was created and sustained and returned to, that thing, if we're focused on the same thing, life gets a whole lot easier. And
Mm.
so that missing piece in my manifestation practice kind of like opened up and I went, holy smokes. It's just that simple. Just shift it over. And instead of asking to get stuff and asking to create circumstances, I started asking to become the person who naturally attracts
Yes.
and sustains those circumstances.
Mm.
Because once the becoming happens, then the rest, that's the effortless part. The
Yeah.
effort is the becoming, right? And so
Yeah.
that was kind of the thing that happened. And the other part of that realization, the second part of it, was the other thing that I was struggling with, which was that cognitive dissonance of living in a chaotic, what I was viewing at the time as a chaotic world. And what can I do? I'm one person out of
Mm.
7.8 whatever billion people, right? What can I do to help?
Mm.
Should I go on protest or sign petitions or recycle or what is the thing that you should do? All those things are great, whatever. But there's a very fundamental thing that I can do. And it's the same thing I just described,
Yes.
and that is evolve. Because the thing that is going to save the human race, the thing that is going to save the planet is the evolution of the human species. It's the
Mm.
up-leveling of the consciousness of the human species. Nothing else is going to save us.
Right.
Right? We have to evolve into a species that is beyond violence, into a species that is in harmony with ourselves and with each other and with our environment.
Yeah.
And I actually, I think this is a consistent thought in the great spiritual traditions is that I actually only have one thing that I can do there,
Mm.
and that's evolve me.
Yes. Hmm.
That's my game. You can't make me evolve, try as you will. I can't, I can't make you evolve. I can't make anybody evolve. There's no
Right.
amount of
Right.
evangelism or knocking on doors or whatever that is going to get other people to evolve.
Hmm.
That's a personal game. And so one of the kind of mantras of the show that I'm not particularly proud of is focus on your own shit.
Yeah. No, I
Because
love that.
that's right. That's all we have to, that's the only lever we have to pull there. But
Hmm.
and that sounds like bad news because there's only one of me. But the actual news there is that my evolution or your evolution has a tremendous impact on the field of humanity,
Yes.
right? This idea of a morphic field, that there's an organizing principle to the molecules that make up us, this physical meat suit, right? What is that? Well, whatever that is, there's one for humanity as well. And so
Mm.
the morphic field of humanity and the morphic field of you there is inseparable. And so
Yeah.
you have a direct line in to pump that field with as much light and consciousness and awareness and love and compassion as you can. It can take all of it. And it doesn't
Absolutely.
take, and that's the good news is that we don't have to have 51% or 5% or 3% or whatever. We just have to have enough love and light and energy in the system and awareness, consciousness in the system. And, the definition of consciousness is a whole nother conversation because it gets used a lot.
Right.
But
Right.
to up level the entirety of humanity because we all share the same field.
Yeah.
And so those two things come together at once. And all of a sudden I went, oh, okay, that's starting to make sense. And then I started using it and it started to actually make changes in my life.